Hey, Film fans, England Teen here. I'm with LK. We have a slight debate about John Wick 4 because I think both of us loved it. Both of us had a great time, but at some point in time, my brain clicked on and maybe I'm overthinking it.
You're
Maybe I'm
overthinking
not. I'm overthinking it
it.
because I started going, wow, that movie was awesome, but it wasn't really good. And everybody's loving this movie. So I am absolutely 100% willing to say I'm wrong if we can prove it. But I'm not saying it's a bad time. I'm just saying it's not a great movie for everything it needs to be. And since, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
since I seem to be the one that's going against millions of people who are saying this is just the most awesome film of all time. Let me go first here and explain why.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, I love this film. I titled this video "Excellent Without Being Good," and that's so. Let me say this is one of the most visceral, entertaining action films you will ever see. Any 30 or 40 minutes of this film is freaking awesome. Put them together, and the some of the parts are greater than the whole, in my opinion. I don't think that this is a great John Wick film because at the end they announced how or they alluded to the fact that it was going to be the people under the table versus the people over the table, including going after the ultimate power, the one above the table, which we met in John Wick 3. The movie. Oh, by the way, spoiler alerts. There ain't no way we're not getting away with talking about it. We're going to spoil the out of this movie. Okay, so we had that in 3. And the one above the table. They're going to war with the Bowery and John Wick and New York, according to Winston. So these three forces are going to be coming together, according to the third movie, and they're going to go up against the table. Movie opens. He shoots the one above the table. Let's go, guys. All of a sudden, the table's off the table. And it's not going after this world, this society they've created. They're not going to be tearing down things like they promised in 3. Instead, they're going to go after one of the most effeminate guys in the entire series. Basically, the actor who played It. And by the way, the man's a baller. He dresses great. I got to say, whoever did his wardrobe, I want that in my life. But all of a sudden it's him. Now, granted, he had been given powers to take care of John Wick by the people who ran the show, but that's not who we're going after. We're no longer going after the underlings at this point, or at least we were told that. And instead of going after the system, we're once again going after just one little bit of it. And I was a little disappointed at that. Second thing that I was disappointed at is while I enjoy almost every action scene, they go on for far too long. It's very much 3 minutes of dialogue and then 30 minutes of action, which in the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, it's like, wow, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. That's repetitive. That's repetitive. That's repetitive. That's repetitive. And that was where I had my problem. I think those were the two biggest problems. We'll get as we go along and we're talking about this, which I hope both of our memories are good. I'll point out to specific things, but overall, that's why I think that while John Wick 4 is excellent, it's a great time at the movies. It's not a particularly good movie.
Okay.
So, all right,
Well,
but that's where I'm getting it. That's an expanded version of what we were talking about that led to this. Now, the movie starts. We get the whole thing about he meets the one above the table, whom it is a different actor. The one who played the one above the table was taken out. So who's above the one above the table? And then we're brought back to the hotel. Everything's cool. We see a little bit of what's going on with I'm having a hard time thinking of the king.
Oh, well, he's just the Bowery King, Lawrence Fishburne.
Thank you, the actor, like he's been around forever, and of course he's setting up John Wick to go off on this big thing. I got to tell you, I love Lawrence Fishburne in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
He's just thoroughly entertaining. I love the fact that even though he was laid low, he's still like, I'm the king, baby. He's just, he's doing that with scars across his face and everything. It's, I dug this. I dug this segment of the movie. We get some information. Okay, John Wick is excommunicado, and if you've helped him, you're going to die. I'm thinking the next big action scene is in Japan.
Well, I mean, you have the whole situation in New York first.
And what was that? Remind me.
Well, the Clancy Brown's character comes in, the Harbinger.
Yeah, and he comes in and he says
that basically the New York hotel has been condemned, and you have 3 hours to clear out or what have you.
Right, and they bring Winston and the concierge, Lance Reddick, God rest his soul.
Sharon.
They bring him in, Sharon, and that's where we meet it. And it says
the Marquis.
Okay, we call him Marquis. We can call him it. All right. But he says if your hotel's condemned, if you don't have a hotel, you don't need a concierge. Let's take out Lance Reddick, which a lot of people, of course, he's getting a boost now because, of course, of his death. But a lot of people say Lance Reddick is usually the best thing Lance Reddick's in. It was kind of rough. I saw it. I was like, oh no, not. It's like 5 minutes into the movie. Mm-hmm. How can you do this, guys? Come on. But we do also see the New York Continental blow up.
Right. And they leave. He leaves Winston basically as a warning. To don't mess with the table.
Right. What the hell did they expect Winston to do after that? That's a big question. Like, his role in the world at that point, and this is not a complaint. This is just something that popped up. What would you expect him to do after that? Like, what is his role in this assassin world? That and let's just face it, it's the world.
Part of it was, at least on the Marquis side, was to try and draw John Wick out, because the Marquis' whole duty or assignment from the high table was to kill John Wick, because John Wick needs to be made an example of, so that there are no more John Wicks, as he says. And by letting Winston live, I think part of it possibly was hoping that he would contact Wick, and that would draw him out into the open. But we don't necessarily see that, because then, I think basically then we're moving on to Japan, which is fantastic scene. But but I mean, before we get to that, and actually even before that, so we do get part of Japan. Well, I'm trying to remember the sequence, because I think actually we get introduced to John again before that.
Yes. Yeah. We're in the park and we see him, and he's kind of stepped back, not interacting with a violin player who is also Asian, but he's kind of sitting back and he's listening. We are shown through character, of course, that he is blind. We are told later that this violin player is his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And he is threat hired. I want you to kill John Wick, blah, 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 yada, yada. And he's being hired. But then he says, I'm not interested. And he goes, well, you know what? Do you know who is interested? Your daughter in living. So you better do this. That's not direct dialogue.
Well, and it also starts out too, just, like in John Wick 2, the Marquis has a marker, to say, hey, you were, yes, you got out, but we still own you.
And the name given was John Wick.
And and then he starts to kind of say, well, no, I'm not doing it. And then basically becomes, well, we need a body. And if it's not yours, it'll be your, or John Wick's, it'll be your daughter's. And then basically as the classic gives him no choice. And then,
right.
And
that leads us to
Japan. He now enters the game. Before we get too far, so I wanted to ask, so since you said, it's awesome without being good.
Yeah, it's not a good John Wick movie.
If you're ranking the 4 John Wick films, what's your ranking?
The first one's the best. It's tight. It's got clear motives. The action, while is never subdued, but it's never over the freaking top. It doesn't go on forever and a day. So I definitely like the first one better, and then maybe the second one, and then the fourth and the third.
Okay.
Once again, you got to remember, I think this movie is excellent without being good. So I find I will own it. Just like I own all the other John Wicks. I'm going to enjoy it many times, I'm sure. But I can recognize the flaws in this, and sometimes the flaws are like, oh, that's way too much. I was trying to go in order, and we can address everything, but I'll jump to one thing. The worst part of this movie, straight up, is the stair scene, because it is repetitive to the point of being hilarious. It's a cartoon scene. It is Wile E. Coyote. Worse, it's Chris freaking Farley. There is a scene. Go check it out. Black Sheep. Chris Farley falls.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I've got to completely disagree with you here.
Yes.
I think this is kind of the difference.
Well, let me climb up.
Here's the difference, and this is where
the difference is guns.
Is that I got fully bought into it and was completely sucked into the movie, because when that stair scene hits, I'm feeling the tension of he's got 5 minutes to get up those stairs. And
the first time I was too.
Every time he got knocked back, it was like, oh crap, he's and then getting knocked back again. It was like, okay, how's he gonna make it up there? Because we already saw that he had a bum foot, or it was certainly limping after the great scene at the Arc de Triomphe and is it the Champs-Élysées? Yeah. And so I think that's kind of one of the differences where I was completely bought into the universe and to John Wick. So again, and it's happened to me with other action movies, universe movies, if you want to call them, where I don't get completely bought into the story, and I can start picking out the flaws and start pulling the threads and what have you. And I think that's kind of like the difference here between you and me, is where I was completely bought in and just immediately sucked into it, and whatever flaw was there, I'm sure on multiple viewings that they'll maybe become more apparent. But I love the universe. I love the whole idea.
Me too.
Of the Continentals and this underground, hidden in plain sight, group of assassins and everything.
This, by the way, with John Wick, you have to understand straight up first that this is not our Earth with a deadly cabal going around it. No, this is its whole own world. There is not a cop or fireman to be seen unless it's convenient. Like in the first movie and in the second movie, you see a cop. Hey, John.
Yeah. Well, that's
you're working.
That's that
cop. Take care, John. And then in the second one, his house blows up and there's a fire truck. But after that, no, they are not to be seen anywhere. And so you have to just your suspension of disbelief has to understand that this is not the world you live in, This is the world John Wick lives in, where cops either get a message or they understand that if there's a bounty out, don't go and try to stop them. Don't go and try to help, civilians. Yeah. Don't do that, because you're just going to get in the way of the killers.
Yeah. Well, let me make a little comparison here. It's the same reason why I love the movie Wanted.
Okay.
And
I've never heard anybody say that before, but there you go.
What? That they
love the movie Wanted. Yeah.
Oh, it's great. I've actually read the Mark Miller graphic novel, that's based on. That's again one of those movies where, every time if I'm scrolling past and it happens to be on, I'll wind up getting sucked in for 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes of watching it. Because again, just that whole idea of, secret assassins doing stuff, and so to me, there's those same parallels that, it's kind of an alternate Earth of this, group of, hidden assassins and what have you, and forces pairing off. We have the same thing. We have the same thing here. But yeah, so once we get past the scene, Donnie Yen, Kane gets recruited by the Marquis. Then the action switches to Osaka.
Beautiful scene, by the way.
Yeah.
For any complaint, the cinematographer and the stunt choreographers deserve. They don't even have stunt Oscars. They should. This movie alone warrants an Oscar for stunts. But the Japan is beautiful from beginning to end in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, primarily the Japan we see is just Osaka and then the Osaka Continental. But yeah, that just goes to the whole movie in terms of, as I've heard other people talk about it and completely agree. I mean, the scope and the feel of the movie is incredible. Mm-hmm. Every location looks as best as possible in kind of this, I call it kind of surrealist, hyper realistic, sort of thing. Just a ton of style. Again, it kind of reminds me of more of a kind of modern Guy Ritchie type movie. Again, having recently seen Operation Fortune.
Awesome film.
Totally
that's my other. By the way, that's my other A film of this year. John Wick is an A movie, and Operation Fortune is an A movie, in my opinion.
I'll definitely back those up. But yeah, you get just beautiful reds and blues, what have you, with this fantastic, almost futuristic looking Osaka Continental, and that's where, of course, we wind up meeting Hiroki Sanada, who plays Shimatsu, who is the manager of the Osaka Continental. And if you're not familiar, Hiroki Sanada is a longtime Japanese actor, most recently seen in Bullet Train.
He's the
old guy.
He's the training. What is it? In The Last Samurai. He's the guy who doesn't like the fact that Tom Cruise is there, and he fought Wolverine.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's been around. He's a very respected Japanese actor.
Yeah. So it's great. We get introduced to him. We get, of course, introduced to the concierge at the Osaka Continental. That of course Akira, that is played by Rina Sawayama. And of course, turns out, not shockingly, that it's actually his daughter. And then we see, of course, that the Marquis forces have come to the Osaka because they believe that John Wick is there.
Correctly.
And it turns out that, John has come to Osaka to reach out for assistance from his good friend.
And of course, he steps up and he says, "No, you can't check our hotel out." And they say, "Okay, well, this is deconsecrated, so now we can perform business here, and we're going to go find John Wick and kill him." And one thing I do not quite understand, because you see this in every movie. If you're in Japan and you've got a bad guy or a whatever guy versus the Japanese guys. The whatever guys have guns, and the Japanese guys go, "Yeah, let me get my swords." They've got guns.
Yeah, well, swords or axes, or some sharp implement, shall we say?
They're all modern day assassins. Pull out your freaking guns, dudes. Yeah. Let's not go to shurikens and caltrips and such like that until the bullets are gone.
For close up, I mean, close up hand to hand, and that was the whole thing. I mean, if you
by the way,
inside the gun range, then
which is actually my biggest complaint about John Wick 2, is you had too many people that believed they needed to run up to John Wick to shoot him rather than stay at a safe distance to shoot him. Once again, you got, but that's the suspension of disbelief. You bring it in close quarter, because the kung fu fights and the sword fights and all that kind of stuff is a hell of a lot more entertaining than people standing 50 feet away firing shots hoping something hits. So you get this gun kata, which was brought up in Equilibrium, and worse, Ultraviolet, which John Wick took and just ran with and made it actually cool. But that was one thing I thought was funny in the Japan scene, is that you have the Marquis de Sade's guys, and they're like, "Okay, let's shoot this place up," and they're like, "No, we'll stop you." Yeah. I mean, I'm simplifying things, obviously, but I was like, wait a second.
Yeah, well, and then of course, I mean, this is where we get the first major action set piece that, I mean, it's just fantastic. I mean, if you break it down, there's really overall, I would say, about 4 major action set pieces, and any one of these set pieces would be like the finale or the denouement action piece in just about any other action movie, or certainly any Marvel movie and things like that.
But I will I will, this is the mountain I will die on. Every one of them is about 10 minutes too long. All of them. You could probably cut out 10 minutes worth of any of these and you would lose nothing, because a lot of it's John Wick, or one of, like, we're in Japan now, John Wick, the daughter, the father, taking out any number of mindless bad guys. There's 2 main bad guys in this. It's Kane and the dude that works for the Messiah with a goatee and so forth. Yeah, you could have a few. Okay, we're working through these guys to get to the bad guy. You probably cut off 10 minutes of that. I will say, though, one of the best scenes in this first fight isn't with Kane, which is that whole sequence is awesome, but with the girl, the daughter, who she's fighting a guy who you could tell there's no punch she's going to throw that's going to hurt him. There's nothing. I mean, he's wearing one of those bulletproof suits, so he's doing the bump thing. So she cannot get to him. She just can't. She's getting her ass tossed around, and then finally she does kind of like a spin move, and she slices the Achilles, and he goes down. And then the next scene is her jabbing. She's climbing him using her knives.
Yeah, she jumps on top of him, and he's trying to climb up the stairs to get away. And
she can't get, like I said, she's climbing him. She's using her knives as climbing spikes to get to this guy's head, so she can. And that I thought was freaking brilliant. And that is one of the really good things about this movie, is the choreography, the fight choreography, up to a point. Once again, they begin to get repetitive in their fight scenes, but occasionally something pops out, and it's like, I am so glad I saw that. This is why I'm here. As far as the whole Japan scene, there is one excellent, like, this is the segment we came for. 2. One is with Kane. He's blind. Okay, how is he going to be an assassin in a gunfight? And so you see him running through a kitchen, and he's putting up these motion sensing doorbells. And he even lines up the height of the doorbell with his cane, and then he lines up his gun with the cane as well. So when they pop off the doorbell, blam, he can shoot in there in the same range. And the cool thing is he doesn't always have a kill shot. He's a blind man with a gun, and they treat him like a blind man with a gun. He might hit one, but when he swings around, he's not swinging directly to. I thought that was, once again, great choreography.
Oh yeah, no. Again, and that's one thing. This movie amongst all other ones, it's things are so well thought out. That there's very few opportunities where you're going to go, well, wait, why is he doing that when you could have done this? Which, again, especially as the Marvel movies have gotten dumber and dumber and worse they go on, you're constantly doing that. Here again, the things with Donnie Yen playing, this blind assassin, just the little things in terms of, compensating, for the fact he's blind, the way that, he would use, tap his sword cane, around, to make sure he's not, he's finding obstacles and avoiding them. But just the way he also gets introduced in this sequence is just awesome. Whereas John Wick has this intense personality constantly about him. There's always something just kind of seething below the surface a little bit. Mm-hmm. Donnie Yen comes in as just the ultimate Mr. Relax, Mr. Cool. Because that's kind of a little humorous in terms of, while everybody's just battling and, shooting each other and beating the hell out of each other, he's just standing back, just waiting until, finally says, hey, you're going to finally, jump in here. And then, he, finally gets down in the kitchen and, starts, trying to find John. And ultimately it leads to, the fight, especially that anybody that's, Asian action film fan, it wants is, the Sonata versus Yen.
It's the dumbest fight in the movie. It is the
don't. No, it is fantastic.
No, okay, hold on. You put that fight in any other movie where it would make sense, and that's a great fight. Choreography-wise, awesome. Two guys I would love to see in a martial arts fight at any time, awesome. Tell me where Don Wick is. Oh, I don't know. He left. I literally have no idea where he is because he left the hotel grounds while I was here fighting with you and a whole bunch of other people. I literally have no idea. You can go now. That's it. Oh no, I not tell you where John Wick is. Oh no, we got to fight. No, bullshit. He left. No, I have no clue. It's the dumbest fight because it doesn't make sense for that fight to happen.
If you go back and watch, Shimazu obviously knows where John is going next. And, again,
he doesn't have to say that. He just left the hotel. I have no idea where he went. Go find him. That is part of your job. Have a good day. I'm going to take my daughter to the hospital now. That is a fight that truly did not have to happen. And it's like I said,
it's an assassin thing. It's an honor thing. You don't understand.
It's an honor thing. I don't understand. Yeah, thank you, sir. But that's one problem I had. He left. I don't know where he is. Go. Where do you think he goes? Where do you think he goes? Donnie Yen knows where he's going next. We know this because he shows up where he is next. It's just that was. It's like I said, this movie is excellent without being any good. There's no point to that fight. There truly was no point to that fight. We got an awesome fight out of it, but there was no point to that fight. It wasn't. Or how about this one? Oh, I'll be waiting for you. No, Slash, she's dead. Okay, you don't have to wait for her now because how do you know she's not going to say, oh, before I kill you, I'm going to kill this little violin player you like watching. You don't, if you're going to do that, you don't let the freaking assassin alive to kill family. And by the way, I had that conversation with my wife. My dad once taught me, never shoot a man when you can shoot him twice. If you're going to shoot them, you got to make sure they're dead. And that's something I've lived by. I'm sorry, but every person I've killed, I've made sure they're dead so they can't kill me.
Well, but the whole thing between Kane and Akira that is a classic Asian martial arts film. You want to call it a trope or what have you. I mean, it's a sign of honor, what have you. Hell, the same thing happened in Kill Bill. Remember that the bride, goes and takes out
who once again is dressed like she's from the 14th century. One thing they have t-shirts and jeans in Japan, guys. Why the kimonos?
Well, because again, it's the formal nature, especially as the Osaka Continental. Plus, hey, as you said too, this isn't our world. So
that's right. It's not our world.
It's different customs. I mean, typically you're not wearing your skin tight battle armor underneath your kimono. So,
which, by the way, hot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As
I got to tell you, it's like she takes the kimono off and it's got that, and it's like
the heart skipped a beat when she just ripped that off and was like, oh, sweet. So
sexy is back. Thank you, Justin. That is an old reference there, kids. All right, so where do we go to next?
Oh shoot, I'm trying to remember now.
Then he didn't have to go to Germany at this point. Was he going to? Oh no, we should bring out the most useless character. Literally, he could be written right out of the movie, and you lose nothing. There's this young black man with a dog, which I'm thinking, wait a second, could they not afford, or was Halle Berry too busy making her boxing movie that she couldn't do John Wick for? Because we have a young black man with a dog doing a lot of same things with the dog that Halle Berry did with her dog. So it made me think that this was actually a character that it might have been her, and they rewrote it because they couldn't get her. But he absolutely 100% could be removed from the film and you lose nothing.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, he doesn't detract from the film, and again,
I didn't say he didn't detract.
It's again, it provides another dimension of here's this guy who's actually been secretly tracking, because he's called the Tracker. Tracking John Wick. He's got this notebook full of notes. We've seen in other action movies, type things. Even some comic book ideas pop up in this movie, and his whole idea, kind of the classic of he's keeping tabs, and in this case he's looking for that one big score, and he's not going to take on John Wick until the bounty reaches a certain amount. And so he's there in Osaka. And there's one point, where, one of the bad guys looks like he might get the jump on John. And again, instead the Tracker takes him out from a distance.
Which is, I got to admit, yes, you can remove him from the script and the movie doesn't change. But I did like the part where and this is not just in Osaka, this is throughout the movie, he doesn't let other people kill John Wick. That's his job. Mm-hmm. So he isn't saving John Wick because he's on his side or he believes in his ideals or anything. It's just that when the price gets high enough, he wants to be the one that puts the bullet in his head. So he follows him around, letting a lot of stuff happen. And I thought that part was kind of cool. But once again, that whole part, even though it had some cool parts to it, this character it's not necessary. So yeah, where do we go after that? Because I'm thinking the fat guy, but was he really next?
Well, it's okay. He gets on the subway, he has the interaction with Akira.
With Akira, yeah.
He promises, if either John takes out Kane or if she says she will, and he says, yeah, I'll do it. And then, she leaves and he goes on. And then, oh shoot, let's see. Since I necessarily think I was going to be doing a review of it, I didn't take notes. Watching.
Yeah, I didn't. I would, when we said, okay, we're going to talk about this and we're going to go through what I liked and what I didn't, and you were going to debate me on this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can talk about. I mean, we can talk about, again, kind of like getting to like one of the next, big action pieces. So yeah, at some point he gets to Berlin. Yeah, because
no, was it Berlin next? I thought there was something in between there.
Yeah, well, yeah, there is something in between. He gets to a Bowery. Paris, or no, not Paris yet, but he gets to a Bowery location because ultimately he gets in contact with Winston.
Mm-hmm.
Winston tells him what happened. They talk about.
He meets Winston at the grave, and he says you could challenge him.
That's right.
But now you need, so the next big fight is the fat guy, because he tells him now you need to go to the Germans to get your ticket remade to be a part of a family, because he was out in the third movie. He got his ticket punched, so he's no longer a part of or attached to any family. And now he wants to go back, so he goes to the Germans, and they capture him, and they're about to kill him because he's just too much of a problem. And then it's said,
well, it's
challenged.
It's not going to the Germans. It's going his family happens to be in Berlin.
There you go. But
he's a child of the Belarus.
And they say that in order to be the child of the Belarus, he has to take out this fat guy who killed some of their family.
No, Uncle Theodore, who was the head of the family.
And the fat guy is played by Scott Speedman.
Scott
Atkins?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so point being is that I was actually surprised. But then I saw the movies and I said, yeah, you need somebody like him for what he does, which is kind of weird because, first of all, I love his performance in this. I think it's really cool. We get him, and then John Wick shows up. The kid with the dog shows up, and Donnie Yen shows up. And he has this whole speech and everything. I thought it was really done well. And the big fight starts. Once again, this fight goes on too long. But the most unbelievable thing about this is he's thrown off like 5,000 feet worth of nothing into the ground. And it's like, well, that sucked. Let's go fight some more. There
were a couple times where John fell off over a railing or what have you and landed on something hard. And you're like, okay. Yeah,
at one point in time, later in his big Paris fight, he jumps out of a window like 5 stories down and hits a car, which crushes a good 2 feet in and bounces off. You're liquid. That's not how bulletproof suits work. I don't even know what bulletproof suits are. I know that's not how it works because your brain, by the way, is still shaking. It's not covered. And at some point in time, your chin and the top of your head are going to meet.
Yeah. It's an action movie thing. Just move on. Again,
it's a John Wick thing.
This is where either you're buying into the universe and you're buying into what the movie is setting up, or you're not.
Those things take me out of it. I got to admit, anytime I saw him fall, it's not like, oh, we're going to throw you over this one railing, or like the fall in John Wick 1. By the way, he got his ass whipped twice in John Wick 1 by the same guy. And this guy, they're in the bar and he throws him over the edge and he falls 1 story. And you felt it. But that's survivable. I mean, that is actually get up and walk. If you land right, that's get up and walk away survivable. But when you're seeing heights of like 2 stories, 3 stories, you're breaking bones. You're liquefying insides. And that the first time that really happens outside of course, the end of number 3 is in this scene. The other problem I have with it, as much as I loved his fighting, the fat guy, I forget the character's name. It's Scott Atkins. What was his name?
That's the actor. The character is Killa.
Killa. Okay. Killa runs away. And he's running away like, oh, okay, I gotta get. He runs so slow that John Wick, who's walking behind him, has time to throw into his back and his legs and such. And then you get to his fight, and he's Scott Atkins, and he's kicking all sorts of ass. He's actually probably the most skilled fighter John comes up, except for Donnie Yen. It's an impressive fight. As a matter of fact, I hated when they interrupted their fight to go to nameless, faceless goons. You know, it's like, okay, we saw that. You roll them over. Okay, boom, boom, boom. That I hated when they interrupted it because I actually liked his fight. Okay, I thought you were going to respond, but I'll tell you this.
No, I mean, again, it's another fantastic, set piece, and again, yeah, I can. From a distance, yes, I can see where you could say, okay, yeah, it went, too long. You could, kind of cut out, where just, some of the fighting between,
nameless, faceless,
yeah. But it's so well done. And again, as I say, if you get, again, as I repeat, the whole thing becomes, if you get sucked into it, you don't care. And I think that's kind of where it is.
Hey, LK, this is a great club, man. All right. Yeah. Dude, look, that guy just got his head exploded. Oh, my gosh. Can you believe that's happening? Oh, my God. Oh, dude, that guy's got an axe in his head. All right. Not one person stopped.
Kind of like zombies. Hey, you know what? That happened in, in John Wick 2, in the Rome sequence as well. There were plenty of people falling and getting shot and dying.
Nobody even looked. Blam, 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 blam.
Yeah.
Plus, come on, guys.
At the same time, I've always thought of that as, people know or have an idea that, this nightclub or whatever you want to call it, run by a gangster or, it's somewhat shady and,
people still don't want to be hit by an axe or bullets. So there would be a reaction. But look, that is another thing that it kind of like, I stopped for a little bit. I stopped watching the fight and I started watching to see if anybody reacted. There were 2 people who went, it was just like that too. I was like, oh my God. And by the way, I do dance better than that. So, okay. But it pulled me right out watching this crowd. And that comes up later also. We'll talk about something very similar later.
Oh,
but right. This scene.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, let's continue this. Need to go back on one thing. So I forgot.
Okay. This scene, once again, it's gorgeous. The waterfall and the rain, everything. This is such a great looking movie. It is so cool. It's got a bunch of ridiculousness in it. Like the 62-foot fall on his stomach getting up. I mean, it's ridiculous because, okay. And how does Killa die? He falls. Of course, he lands on his head. I mean, if he landed flat on his stomach, then maybe nothing would have happened.
Yeah. Well, because John kind of flipped him over and flipped him down the stairs, and
it's not the 62 feet that kills you. It's what body part you land on.
Yeah, exactly. Which is
exactly. Yeah. Okay. What part did you want to go back to?
Well, I'm just going to finish off with this. I mean, again, part of why this movie looks so good is because you have real locations, or at least it never. I'll take you back. There's one part kind of, towards the end where it was like, okay, I think they were filming this against a green screen. But otherwise, you never got that feeling. It never degenerates into CGI glop.
No.
Which has become one of my biggest issues with the Marvel movies and kind of all the superhero and all the fantastical movies that have been coming on lately, is that CGI has become too much of a crutch and too much of this idea of, yeah, we're just going to film everybody behind a green screen and then we'll just, digitally put it in later. There's nothing to be said about having real locations and real stunt people and doing real action stuff. And that's what really makes this movie great.
The only part where I was really like, okay, that's on a green screen. And obviously it's on a green screen. I mean, if you use your head for 5 seconds, it's going to be on a green screen, is in a motorcycle chase where they're actually doing stunts. And you see the close up of Keanu, the background looks fake. It's not like, oh, let's just stay on this shot. So it really is just a scene, cut. And every time they cut to Keanu, the background just doesn't look real. I mean, in fleeting, it does. If you're not looking for that, or if you're not trained to look for that kind of thing, you're probably not going to notice it. It's just
yeah, no, the one part I would say with that was there was one shot where it's Keanu and Winston looking at the
sunset,
sunrise.
Yeah, sunrise. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking that might be, but I've never stood on that spot at sunrise, so I have no idea.
Sacré-Cœur,
dude,
on the steps there.
I stood on a mountain at sunrise in Thailand, and it looked like a freaking travel photo. I mean, it was like it was one of those things where you would think it was created in a lab or on, in CG or something like that.
Yeah.
I was most impressed by the blue water that I could see the bottom of from the top of a mountain. It's just like, holy crap, this exists. I guess it's like Banshees of Inisherin. It was a morbid story where everywhere the camera turned, it's just freaking gorgeous,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one part that I completely forgot that we, overlooked was, in Osaka too, is when we get our first John Wick and Kane confrontation, and that kind of happens in the walkthrough. I think that was kind of like in a training room facility, the Osaka Continental.
Yeah.
And again, just a fantastic, well choreographed scene. Again, really paying attention to detail in terms of, Kane and how, he adapts to his blindness, and at the same time, John recognizes that because they're friends. And not quite sure that Kane was a mentor, but I mean, there's definitely a serious relationship there. Making sure, and kind of, trying to use sound to, distract Kane or, throw him off a little bit.
When he, John Wick realizes he's got an empty gun and Kane doesn't. Mm-hmm. And he just kind of rolls a little bit and he lands on some glass. And you hear that and he goes, like John Wick makes this, ooh, I fucked up face,
Kane, quickly whips around and, fires off a few shots, and then John's, rolling past it, and, the action continues. So, I mean, we're going here. I mean, I think it's probably at this point, time to talk about, the getting to, ultimately, he does, defeat Killer, proves his worth, gets back in the family.
It's the duel.
Gets the, so is able then to have the parlay basically and get the offer to have the duel between himself and the Marquis. Whereas if John wins, then of course, he's finally out. He's out underneath the table and he's free. And Winston at the same time also bargains to have the New York Continental rebuilt. He'll be reinstated as manager, all rights and privileges, so on and so forth. And of course, the Marquis will be dead. Whereas, basically, if the Marquis wins, of course, John will be dead. And then, of course, Winston will also be dead because the second, which is Winston, will be killed as well. Of course, the Marquis always has an ace up his sleeve. And he says, oh, well, I'm going to, it's my right to nominate somebody to take my place in the duel, and that'll be Kane. And, Kane really has no choice but to accept.
Because of their daughter?
Yeah. And so, ultimately it's going to become a Kane versus Wick showdown at 30 paces with dueling pistols at the Sacré-Cœur at sunrise. And of course, the Marquis, being the evil bastard that he is, wants to make sure that John doesn't get to sunrise. And so, of course, ups the bounty, and then that becomes the whole fight to get to the Sacré-Cœur. And so with this, we get basically 3 incredible action sequences. And I'm not sure which one is the best. I mean, they're all...
I know which one's the worst.
They're all to you. They're all amazing in their own way. All unique.
I would say two and a half. 2.5. Oh wait, no. No, I would say that the scene in front of it with the cars, that runs way too long. So, in all honesty, we get 1 and 2 halves.
Yeah, obviously not a man of culture.
Okay, so let's get to it. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, why is it this is it starts off with a question of quality right away. How close can you get me to the church? And the king, who has now come to Paris, is the middle. I can't get you close to the church at all, dude. I'm going to laugh here, but what I really mean is I'm going to drop you off at one of the most inconvenient spots where you're still going to have to fight for 2 freaking hours instead of use a canal or something to drive up to that beautiful freaking port behind the church.
Okay, so a couple of things. Just my limited knowledge of Paris. The Sacré-Cœur, which is where the duel is going to take place, is basically a religious place up on a hill. So I don't think there's any way to get there from the Paris Underground and the canals.
It's not on the coast?
No.
Okay, I got that feeling from what they were showing in the sunset.
No, it's up on a hill.
Okay.
It's up on a hill. That's why you had the 222 steps to get up to the Sacré-Cœur.
They would have done better.
True, because I mean,
they would have done better to stuff him in a trunk and have some nameless, faceless, homeless Bowery guy drive him to the church. But
yeah, I'm sure that's going to work. So, but again, for
that's what they should have done. This is what we
sake or whatever. Yeah. So,
right.
They're able to take a boat in the underground, aqueducts and the famous kind of Paris Underground.
There is no aqueducts leading up to this big old church or anything like that. It's the center of Paris or nothing. That's what you're getting here, John Wick.
Yeah. So he gets out, and then of course, he then has to try and fight his way through the streets. He winds up. We get the first, incredible scene, brilliantly done, is the Champs-Élysées. So for those who aren't too familiar with it, it's the famous kind of 8-lane roundabout that circles the Arc de Triomphe in the heart of Paris. So you have all this traffic, and basically his motorcycle gets taken out, and so then you've got cars going one way, cars going the other, fighting between the traffic coming through, guys getting thrown into cars. I mean, it's just
they do not stop. By the way, nobody stops.
Fantastic.
I'm going to throw a body into this guy's car, and he's going to take him to freaking England. Okay, so because he's not stopping. There's here you go, throw that into the car. You don't hear motherfucker, there's a body. No, I'm just gonna keep going. Thank you. I always wanted a guy in a suit. Thank you for the dead guy.
Yeah. So I mean, again, just unique things you haven't seen before in terms of people fighting between the traffic and between dodging the cars. It's just
some French man goes home to his wife, and there is a body on the car, and he's got to tell her, well, they were handing out free samples down at the Arc. Okay, that's what I was driving along, head through the windshield. This is not my fault. These guys with the guns, they're always around. Yeah, where are the cops? They don't exist. This is a cool freaking scene. This is not a good scene because nobody like the dancing. Hey, look, no. Nobody acts or reacts the way anybody would act and react had you 10 to 12 to 400 people shooting back and forth, if somebody throws a body into your windshield, there will be brakes. Even just, what? Oh, shit, people are killing each other. Let me drive away. There would still be a little bit, oh my God, none of that exists in this fight scene.
I think if you go back and watch, the cars do stop. But again, this is where
only when they need to get out and start shooting.
If you're invested in the environment, if you're invested in the universe, and
it's the bullshit that I wasn't invested in, and that is bullshit.
You weren't fully invested because again, this is where I was so into the movie that feeling the tension and just focused on the fight that those things just didn't register for me,
and it went on too long. Look, there were some cool scenes in this, and I did think it was kind of cool, trying to Frogger your way around which body to throw, which body to move. When he did the what was that, Tokyo drift around the group of cars, and he's just taking out the bad guys. That looked cool as hell. So there are, and once again, this is an excellent, cool movie. Yeah. It's not good, but it's excellent. You know, it's just,
and
it's
again, too, this is where this movie and the John Wick franchise by itself gets taken up a notch, because again, like the drifting scene you're talking about, what makes that extra special is it's Keanu Reeves actually doing the drifting scene.
You actually, there are some outtakes. There are some behind the scenes that show him practicing and everything.
Doing the shooting. And so when you have an actor that's as accomplished to be able to do that, you can put the camera in places that you normally couldn't, because you have to cover up for the fact it's a stunt person,
right,
or a stunt driver, and not the actual actor. And that's, again, what just raises the bar on these movies and just make them so special, is because you get these camera shots and these close-ups that you don't get anywhere else, because Keanu is doing the stuff, and it just looks natural to him. So, we have that one, and I believe then it's the house that comes next, or
this may be my favorite.
Yeah.
It reminded me, and as soon as I played this game, it looks like a video game from the 90s with the top down, with them running around, and you can collect your extra firepower bullets as you're going through. What were you about? What
well, I was gonna say, it's, you start out with kind of the normal camera angle, and then at a point, basically, then the camera switches up to like a top down perspective. It's something I've not seen before in an action movie.
It's one shot too.
Yeah, and
or at least it looks one shot.
Absolutely fantastic. I don't know if they did it just with a camera crane, or if they did it maybe with a drone. But the way that you kind of just watch John go through from room to room, and he picks up the shotgun with the dragon fire bullets. If you heard people talking about that literally, it's an incendiary round, and so it leaves the barrel and is on fire and hits the person, and basically explodes or catches him on fire.
It is absolutely a video game scene.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and there's definitely parts of this movie where you feel like you're watching somebody playing a third person.
I wish you could switch how you want, like a video game, because I would love to hardcore Henry John Wick movies.
Yeah.
You ever see Hardcore Henry?
Oh yeah. No,
that would be so cool, getting it first person, man.
Yeah. So you've got that action scene, and then of course you get to, once he survives all of that, has a confrontation again with the tracker, and there's a certain point at that where John Wick gains the respect of the tracker
by saving his dog.
Yeah. And that kind of switches things a little bit, and then he's on now to the last leg, where he's got to climb up 222 steps, I think it is, to get to the Sacré-Cœur. And first it starts out that he's got about 15 minutes or so to get there before sunrise, and of course it turns out that the bad guys are littering the path, and so it becomes this battle of getting up the steps. And again, I mean, just incredible choreography of John fighting his way up, with everything that he possibly has. Again, you get great scenes where he shoots his pistol, once it runs out of ammunition, takes it apart, and is throwing pieces.
He's actually told that if it comes when it comes to that pistol, he's actually told it's also got bite, and he shows the slide that it has spikes on the end, so you could use it as a weapon.
Yeah, it's called a Pit Viper, and it's a $7,000 semi-automatic 9mm pistol.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I think when you're talking about this last scene, And by the way, first time up is awesome. I think really the one word that sums the whole thing up is tedious. Tedious, yeah. Because he makes it to the top and then he's knocked all the way back to the bottom. And then when he goes up again, he's got Donnie Yen next to him. Okay, that's awesome. All right, now we get to see both of them work together. No, you don't. You get to see Donnie Yen do his thing, and you get to see Keanu Reeves do his thing, which, by the way, you just saw 5 minutes ago. Same shit. And then Keanu Reeves gets knocked back down the stairs again. So here goes volume 3. You've got 3 minutes to get to the top. It's good. I mean, how many guys did this guy hire? After a while, you would think he would run out.
Never run out of hands, especially when the bounty is $23 million.
Didn't it get to 40 at one point?
I mean, ultimately, yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think the final thing. Yeah, but look, once again, there's some great scenes to be had in here. The dog attacking the guy, but after a while, he's throwing people down the same way he did the first time. I think at that point, even if you do the first roll down, it's bad. He realizes he's only got 5 minutes to go. Oh, look, Donnie Yen's here to help. Now you do some cool choreography, or maybe both of them, or both of the guys show up and there's a respect. All 3 of them are working their way up. You have the dog, you have Donnie Yen, and they were working together some way. Maybe that would have worked, but like I said, to me, it just grew tedious. I was like, get to the top of the hill. It's time to get to the top of the hill already. Yeah. And they did.
Well, again, though, I mean, ultimately, too, the tracker does help John get to the top. We get the comeuppance. As the dog gets to attack the guy that was about to shoot him. So get that little bit of joy there. But yeah, ultimately, John does finally get to the top with less than a minute to spare. And so then we get into the duel. And again, it's, just a classic duel type thing.
I knew when John Wick fired quickly, okay, so at some point in time, they're either going to turn the gun on the guy or something's going to happen where the guy's going to step in, because there's no way you don't think to sidestep rather than fire when you hear fire, because you don't have to fire right away. You can let your opponent fire. Okay, you don't have, let me take some time and aim. Blam, okay, you can do that. Actually, a lot of duels ended historically because people would wait to see what the first person did, and then they would just go, do you really want to do this? No. Okay, let's not do this. Or they would fire into the air. And just the honor would be that they actually showed up to the duel. This one, however, you get fire, and both John Wick and Kane get arm shots. And so they move in 20 paces.
Yeah, the 20 paces.
Or 10 paces, yeah. And you get, I don't know what's going on here. And then you get Clancy Brown again. Come on. This is going to be the norm. There you go. Right here, right here, right here. Okay, cool. And then you get the 10 paces in, fire, and John Wick gets another arm shot, and you get a side shot for Kane. They go in 10 paces, fire, and they fire, and Keanu Reeves goes down, and they're not dead. So, but Keanu Reeves is down. So Pennywise goes in and he says, let me get the coup de grace. So he gets a bullet. He says that Donnie Yen is free. His daughter's free. No more mess with the table and all that. And so he steps in and wants to go, you arrogant son of a bitch. He didn't fire. And John Wick shoots him in the head.
Yep.
And that is the end of the conflict. But we find out that John Wick had been shot in the stomach. And
in the side.
In the side, yeah. So he's bleeding bad, though. And he also did, by the way, just go through thousands and thousands of bullets on the way up there. This man ain't doing well.
Yeah.
So he goes over to Winston. And he says, you will take me home, right? And Winston mentions the sunrise, and we get that shot that you think may have been on a set with a green screen. And John Wick kind of walks off, goes down the steps a little bit, and
sits
dies.
down and then keels over to the side.
Yeah, dies.
And then we fade out and fade back in, and
we're at the graveyard where we see Stan Winston and
Winston
and Morpheus
and the Bowery King.
Right, yeah, and Morpheus, and they're sitting there, and they're, did you ever think you would see this? And Stan Winston gives, he's not Stan Winston, by the way. Winston gives a smile, and they kind of turn around to walk off. I don't think John Wick's dead. I think they gave an out.
Totally. I mean, it's whatever you want it to be. So, if there's going to be a 5, it's very easy, especially in this universe. It's very easy that John Wick. Yeah, and of course, again, too, it would make sense in terms of, yes, he is out from underneath the table. He quote unquote is free the obligations, but why wouldn't he at this point? If he could, fake his death, make everybody think he's gone, so he can finally
go after the table. Finally, to actually do the movie that this should have been done.
Or now live his peaceful life, which is what he's always wanted since the first one.
Now, here's the thing. I think that they ended it that way just in case Keanu says, I want to do another. Because if Keanu says, I want to do another, there's no freaking way they're not going to go, here's the money. Take it.
Well, especially with the fact of the opening weekend. And the fact that, at this point, I think I think it made
74 something.
Domestically, it made around 74. The worldwide box office, I think, was 175.
Yeah, successful. It's going to be a successful film.
Well, and more importantly, too, is I think it will have great legs. I mean, for a couple of reasons. Again, I mean, this is, going back and, hopefully, again, kind of wrapping this up in terms of lessons for Hollywood to learn again is, hey, guess what? I'm sorry, males still dominate the box office. If you want, for more or less, Titanic being an exception, if you want a movie to make $1 billion consistently, make sure that something in that movie is geared towards 18 to 34, 18 to 45-year-old males. Because they're going to be the ones that go and see the movie again and again and again. And I know in a week or two, I am going to go see it again.
Yeah, I want to also. I'll probably take my wife because I talked about it and she seems interested. She doesn't love the John Wick series, but she enjoys it. So I want to see that. I want to see Shazam again. That one actually, but that one, pure entertainment. It's just a fun film, but it goes to your message. But it didn't make a lot of money, but it is exactly the film we want to see. There's no pretense. There's no the only thing that people would go, oh, it's woke, is one of the kids is gay. Big freaking deal. Gay people exist. It's not like they shove it in. It's just that at one point in time, there's a line where you're compelled to tell the truth. Everybody tells their own truths, and it's supposed to be something exterior or not as personal. But the kid just goes, I'm not, he pops it out. And beyond that, though, it's pure entertainment. John Wick is pure entertainment. It's leave your brain at the door, because if you think about it for 5 minutes, it kind of falls apart entertainment. But it is.
Well, one other thing too to talk about with John Wick is, yes, there are some humorous moments, but they're short, they're quick, and they're effective.
And they don't ruin the serious moments.
It's everything that MCU in particular has forgotten.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you get the subtle, where when he finally gets up, to the Sacre Coeur and to the duel, and of course they have to, take off their jackets. He takes off, his jacket coat, and you hear all of the brass hitting the ground.
Yeah, all the bullets.
The bulletproof jacket. Hearing him get shook out. And it's those little things that are kind of humorous, and also too, just again, the attention to detail, in the choreography. Again, I always love the fact of, with it being a Kevlar or bulletproof, jacket, that whenever he's, ready to leave cover, he always grabs the hem of the jacket, to hold up as kind of a bulletproof shield as he goes running into the fray.
You talk about details. One thing I like is, and this is something they've done since the first movie. He'll fight someone, he'll take him, he'll grab him before he kills the person in his hand who's subdued and no longer a threat. He'll shoot the person coming in, put a bullet in his head, and then go back to this guy. I put him down. He's okay for a second while he's like, oh my gosh, I've been shot. Kill him. Now I can shoot him in the head. Boom. And they do that kind of choreography all the way through. And like I said, never shoot a man once. Never shoot a man when you shoot a man twice. He always goes back for that second shot to make sure the person is down.
Oh yeah, he's always.
That is something I've always enjoyed about the choreography.
Yeah, he'll get into the close combat, grab a guy, bang, bang, bang.
Yep.
And
because if you stand them up, you're going to have to deal with them now, or you deal with them later. That's just the way it's going to be. Okay, so here's the thing. F's are degree of horrible. D's are degrees of bad. C's are degrees of average. B's are degrees of good. And A's are degrees of excellent. And this includes minuses and pluses. Where would you put this movie?
Oh, at this point, I mean, again, I loved it so much. It's definitely a solid A. I mean,
solid A. See, that's kind of funny you say that.
It's not a perfect film, but it is just damn good.
It's kind of funny you say that, because I've told you the flaws. I think this is not I don't want my eyes covered while I'm doing this because of the glare. Okay, so I've complained. I've told you the flaws. I think this is such a really cool visceral experience at the theater, which is hard to come by. I'm agreeing with you as far as grade is concerned. This was an A+, and all the problems I talked to you about brings this to a flat A. Hopefully upon future viewings, I'll either be able to accept them, or maybe it'll drop to an A-. Hopefully it'll stay somewhere in the A category. But yeah, I've got to agree with you. This is an A film. And the big question is, how does it translate to TV? Because this is a theater experience. This is not one to wait for the streaming services. This is not one to wait for DVD or Blu-ray. This is absolutely a theater experience.
Well, and definitely see it on the largest screen that you can get to.
I would say
I'm seriously looking. There's an IMAX theater that's about 30 miles away.
Thinking about doing it?
Well, unfortunately, I can't go this weekend. If it's still playing at the IMAX the next week, I'm really seriously thinking about trying to set aside time.
Either way, it's a theater experience. I would say big screen, but big sound is, if you know what theater has the best sound systems, go to that one.
Yeah. I know I've heard people talk about go see it on something called like the PLF.
My theaters have 40X, which is the moving seats and everything.
Okay.
I kind of want to see it there, because I'm hoping we see gunfire and the seat pokes you.
Yeah, the theater I saw it in, I was pleasantly surprised they put in this kind of, I'll call it extra widescreen. It felt like I was watching like a 70 millimeter film.
Hold on, we got the authenticator to come in and tell us what he thought for the next five seconds. There, go.
What happened?
We're talking John Wick. We have been talking for an hour and 13. We were wrapping up. Did you see John Wick 4?
I did. It was awesome.
Okay, so
I'm sad about the ending.
I'm gonna give you. Okay, no. I'll give you a minute or so, which will just be your greeting. But tell us what you thought, because we're closing out. We're already an hour and 14 in. So,
it is probably the best of the four. Which, given that the starting point was awesome to begin with, that's saying something. Mm-hmm. Someone, please, for the love of God, give Chad Stahelski the rights to do a James Bond series. I want that.
Yeah.
John Wick is the better version of this generation James Bond. This generation James Bond was boring.
Yeah.
John Wick brings back all the pulpy bullshit that James Bond should have.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, Dalton. Yeah, it was one thing I was thinking about at the end of it was, imagine if they gave him and this crew $100 million to do the Black Widow movie. How
I know, right?
Incredible that would have been.
Which speaking of Black Widow, why the hell hasn't Chad Stahelski traded up to a superhero franchise?
This is a superhero franchise.
Well, I mean, yes, this is a very pulpy, very comic booky series of movies. I mean, why haven't Marvel or DC gone, hey, he can do that with basically what amounts to, a basic shoot 'em up. Let's give him the rights to a comic book character with, zany, wacky, weird powers and stuff, and see what he can do.
Yeah. Let's get a Punisher with him and Jay Barenthal. I would love to see that.
Honestly, I think he has the skills to do more than that, though. I think he has the skills that if you gave him a heavy-powered CGI-heavy character, he could do something interesting with that. Especially because the biggest issue with modern, Phase 4, Phase 5 Marvel is the writing and the directing. So get good writers and good directors in there. And while I'm simping for Marvel getting their act together, or DC finally getting their act together after a 10-year series of bad decisions, get the guy who did Sonic 2 while we're at it. Your issue is you're deliberately spiting the fans and not doing well, so get some directors in there who don't freaking spite the fans. Why don't you?
Getting back on track though to the movie that we're talking about. Like I said, we were cleaning up here, but tell us your favorite and least favorite thing about the movie.
The least favorite thing was the ending.
Which ending?
Keanu Reeves could have done this until the day he died, and I'm upset that we're not getting, unless they pull a literal misery moment and say that he's alive in the grave or something.
Well, we just talked about that. I don't think he's dead. Yeah. I don't think he's dead.
I don't either, but according to Chad Stahelski, this is supposed to be the last one. So yeah, it's
supposed to be, but I think they did the ending the way they did. I think really because
so you're banking on the misery style. He's alive in the grave and he's gonna come back.
Because we didn't see him die. We saw him lay down. We already got the promise that they're going to bring him home. We saw him lay down. Winston is the type of guy to fake a funeral.
Yeah, he would. He would pull some strings.
And the way he says he's asked. He's asked, "Have you ever seen the? Did you ever think you'd see the day?" And Winston kind of smiles, and the way the Bowery King looks at him was like,
something, don't you? Yeah.
So I think that exchange kind of leaves the door open just in case Keanu says he wants to do another. Because if Keanu says he wants to do another, they're doing another.
No one on this earth is going to be dumb enough to. Actually, no. I hope no one in Hollywood is going to be dumb enough to refuse him. I would love to say that no one in Hollywood is that stupid, but modern day Hollywood. So
there's going to be 2 spinoffs according to what we've heard. So okay, that was the least. What was the best thing in this movie? What was the one thing you were like? Wow.
The list is too. I think it might be the Paris sequence with the long shots. That's my favorite.
The part with the cars, or
through the building, or through the Champs-Élysées.
The Champs-Élysées. That one.
Okay.
To be fair, I'm a Francophile, and one thing that I love more than anything in this series is it's not just a Jason Bourne style basic shoot 'em up. Mm-hmm. It's also got the what I call the hospitality politicking of the old world, sort of honor among thieves rules. Mm-hmm. And every time aspects of that show up, it just fills me with glee because it makes it improves it from being just a basic, Jason Bourne-esque shoot 'em up to there's actual lore here, there's actual luxury here. And that's one thing I love about the John Wick franchise. They're not afraid to show luxury for its own sake. So many movies now are so quote unquote realistic by which they basically mean softcore nihilistic, where everything is dingy, everything is gray, everything is miserable, and you can never show luxury or opulence or, old world charm. And John Wick just looks at that and goes, yeah, but no, I'm gonna show you all the old world charm and hospitality politicking and honor among thieves and all the stuff that modern day genre movies are missing, frankly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
well, again, it's also the same reason why I loved Operation Fortune and kind of Guy Ritchie films in general. It has that same not being afraid of showing style and panache and good word for it, being opulence.
Some of the complaints I've had, we've been doing this whole review has been basically, this is good, but because the title of this review I put
not me.
is this is my title for the review here. It's awesome without being any good. This movie, the action scenes go way too long. The fight scenes are repetitive. And there are just things that well, at least they pulled me right out of the movie, like when he falls 72 feet into the freaking face plants into the ground and then gets up and immediately starts fighting. That's not how a bulletproof suit works. That's not how a brain works. That's not how a face works. It's not how bones work. It just, I couldn't, that was just one step too far.
Anglantine, I love you and I respect you, but the movie's point has gone right over your heads.
Well, I know it's a comic book movie.
That's what people come for, and that's what people want, dude.
It's just there were certain scenes that did pull me out. It just and that was my big thing. But the funny thing is,
honestly, I like that stuff. I like that they finally just knocked down the pretentious and were like, yeah, we know he's invulnerable.
I'll tell you what,
you gonna make a thing of it?
This movie would have been more honest about what it was had before Keanu fallen, he held up a sign that said, "Uh-oh." And then as he's fallen, his head stays and then shoots down.
Yeah. The Wile E. Coyote routine, yeah.
Yeah, now you're talking about a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
So, and just to go back to the question you asked about why hasn't he done a superhero movie yet, I think the biggest reason why Chad hasn't done a superhero movie is he doesn't want the interference. If you can do a John Wick movie like this and know how much control you have and work with somebody great like Keanu, why deal with the Kevin Feige's and all the meddling? More importantly, too, how we know how Marvel makes their movies, which is they hire the director and basically the director directs kind of, the actors being together, but all the action stuff is done by the second unit and all the visual effects people.
Well, okay, we know they wouldn't do that with him because they didn't do that with the Russo brothers. If the director has an action background, they let them play with the action background.
Except the problem is they haven't been hiring anybody with an action background.
Yes, and you know what would solve that rather spectacularly is if Chad Stahelski was able to trade up like anyone should aspire to in Hollywood. That's how it works. You establish yourself with smaller franchises, and then the big franchises come in and scoop you up because you're talented. Or at least that's how it should work, and that's how it did work right up until Phase 4. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. So
when all of a sudden they started getting Rick and Morty writers for no reason, and the whole bit that proceeded from that.
Yeah. So wrapping this up, looking at it, it said, my rankings are 1, 4, 2, 3. Because actually, after I got home Saturday, I basically spent all of Saturday night into Sunday morning, wound up watching 2 and 3.
Binging all of them. Yeah.
We did that before.
And so ultimately my rankings came out still kind of 1, 4, 2, 3. 1 gets the slight nod for me just because of just how tight that first one is and just how just well put together, and the story just boom, boom, boom goes through. 4, I absolutely love because of all the action pieces and it feels like the movies, the whole franchise really hit the crescendo.
It's embracing itself, which is something that is one of my go-to qualifiers for a modern day good movie is how much do you sincerely embrace your premise and how much or contravening it, how much do you load it down with unnecessary themes and pretensions and pseudo-intellectual bullshit. So
yeah. And then I after rewatching it, I realized I like 2 quite a bit, but the difference between 4 and 2 also is Donnie Yen. I mean, Donnie Yen is just amazing
I mean, Donnie Yen honestly should have been the Ancient One in Doctor Strange. If we're like that does annoy me that we never, or actually no, Keanu could have been the Ancient One, and especially because of how Matrix influenced the first Doctor Strange was, it could have been an awesome kind of passing the torch thing if he was the Ancient One. But things I will never get because of the various we didn't want to offend China / we didn't want to offend the SJWs bullshit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
but just to kind of wrap it up, to throw it to you guys, is this the best or one of the best 4 movie franchises ever? You think about how strong 1, 2, 3, and 4 are. I can't think of a 4 movie run in terms of a cohesive franchise like this.
Certainly not this consistently good. No.
Yeah, I mean the only one that initially came to my mind, and it's funny you mentioned Chad doing a James Bond movie, is I would say the first 4 Bond movies. When you
Mission Impossible,
you look at Dr. No, God. This is horrible. Dr. No, Goldfinger,
From Russia with Love,
and
Goldfinger, Thunderball. Yeah.
Being the 4.
Well,
Mission Impossible. I mean, unless you're talking about the last 4.
Well, the thing is
I could see that.
Well, Mission Impossible is now what, 8? It's going to be 8 movies in.
I believe so.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, its run is pretty good. This is a whole other conversation, so I'm going to wrap this up.
I've never gotten into Mission Impossible.
But here, it's average from bad to, I don't even think 2 is bad. I just think it's not as good as the others. But there's only one that I think anybody can argue. That being said, our scales, F minus to F plus is degrees of horrible. D minus to D plus is degrees of bad. C minus to C plus is degrees of average. B minus to B plus is degrees of good. And A minus to A plus degrees of excellence. Authenticator, where would you put this movie?
I give it an A minus only because there is a possibility that they might end it here. And
okay.
No, I revoke your right to make that creative decision.
I'm the one that's on the movie for an hour and a half. He's the one that gives it the lower grade. All right, gang. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for popping in there, Dalton and LK. This was a feud that needed to continue. Anyway, thanks for all that. Let us know what you guys think. This was a very lengthy discussion as we went from battle to battle here. What did you think? How wrong do you think LK is? How much do you agree with me that this is a very flawed yet entertaining film? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget doing all the clicking and the liking, the sharing. We're starting here on a new channel, basically from scratch, 2023 and up. That's what we're doing here. So please share, click like, get this thing up to 1,000 with 4,000 view minutes as quickly as possible. That's what we need here, kids. Either way, thank you very much for hanging out with us. And as always, thank you very, very much for watching. Have a good day.